Hello and welcome to episode number 27 of the Wonder of Stuff Vodcast, broadcast live on Google Hangouts on air every weekend, Sunday as usual tonight. This is the place where you'll find news, information and commentary on science, engineering and technology from the past week and beyond, and anything else that interests us from inside our tiny little human brains. As always, my name is John Gardner, and to help me us out on this journey to knowledge, let me introduce my colleagues, Richard Smith and Ross Davidson. Say hello, chaps.
Hello, chaps.
Jolly good. Right, without further ado, we'll get started on this week's exciting and enticing episode. Ooh. So, it's with you, this one, the first one, Ross, and it's about heating homes with servers.
Yeah, basically. So this was in the news a couple of weeks ago, actually. And this is a company that's trialing something in the Netherlands. And it's a company called Nerdalize. Great name. And basically, I don't know how anecdotal this story is, but apparently the idea arose when one of the two of the three founders, co-founders, were living together while studying computer science. And they were renovating their house. And during the renovations, they broke their thermostat. So the house was getting cold, and they came up with the idea of using their laptops to keep themselves warm. So apparently they then thought, hold on, there's an idea here. Obviously data centers, where you've got massive amounts of servers, a lot of them spend a lot of money on keeping those servers cool. There's various different ways they do this. Sometimes they even place the server centers in cold, in the Antarctic or something like that to keep it cool naturally. And basically what Nerdalize is doing is, I think it's 5 houses at the moment they're trialing this. They basically get a server and they put it in a big, effectively a wall-mounted radiator, and that is used to both heat the room, if you actually sort of like, there's a thing on the side like an old radiator where you can let heat out, and heat water. And basically they've got a cooling system that warms water up directly from the heat from the CPUs. And it's a passive system, so there's no sort of like very little noise created. And what they're doing is they're renting out the computer power for these servers to academic institutions or people who are doing like lots of things like folding and high intensity sort of cloud-based calculations that are going to be running for a long time. And what they're doing is they can actually save up to 55% of the cloud costs, apparently, by doing this. And the homeowners actually get the heating for free. So the electricity to power them is paid for by the company, and the homeowners get free heating.
So is it part of a standard central heating system?
No, they have to come and install it. So
it's a standalone.
I think so, yeah.
Radiator with a server in it. And
It does heat water, so it must.
Ah, right.
It must pump the water around somewhere. But I mean, at the moment they're just trialing it. One thing I did find out, I was wondering what happens if no one wants to do any calculations. Like, how does the homeowner still get heating? And apparently, what they're doing, if there's no demand, they actually donate computing power to things like we used to do it on work computers and stuff.
SETI and stuff.
That sort of thing.
Yeah.
And then if the internet connection fails, the servers are actually set to do like their own calculations, just repetitive calculations, just to actually create heat. So there's no chance of you sort of like not having any heating because no one wants to do any calculations. But there's a couple of other people doing this, and I actually read a thing. I think it's Leeds University. They've been using their servers to heat the radiators in one of their labs. So it is something that's sort of been looked at in different places as well. And if you think about big research places that might have a lot of servers, it does seem a bit of a waste if you're burning gas or electricity to heat the building and then using electricity to cool the servers down. Bringing them together, you're basically using the energy twice. You're heating this, you're doing the calculations, but then using the waste energy produced to warm the water.
Yeah, I mean, I know for a fact that if you've got a well-designed data center, then that is what actually happens. They have got, obviously you've got your cold aisles and your hot aisles, and it sucks in and pushes out the hot aisles. Well, in standard data centers, that air just floats away basically upwards.
Mm-hmm.
But if it was one of the modern data centers, it actually sucks it out the top,
Mm-hmm.
and once you've got it all channeled up there, you can do things with it.
Yeah.
And like heating the other rooms around the data center. But my immediate question was, well, how? I mean, under normal circumstances of a server, your hot air is just getting shoved out by a fan. It passes over heat sinks and it's pulling it out the fan. So how has it got some sort of heat exchanger in? How does it?
It says it's a closed system that heats water to between 45 and 55 degrees. And excess heat can be dumped by circulating the water through a heat expeller. So basically, the water actually gets brought outside the house, and then cooled. It releases heat in the atmosphere.
That's at the other end. How is it getting? What I'm wondering is how. So you got localized heat on the component that's hot.
Mm-hmm.
How are you getting that localized heat? Unless if you're just letting everything go up, then obviously some server components will be getting too hot then, won't they?
Well, it's
like
exhaust
stuff.
Well, I think it's like water cooling. Basically, it water cools the server, and that water gets heated up, and then
so every
circulated.
All right, so every component in the server is linked up to the water cooler. All right.
I think it must be. Yeah.
I don't think they're very good at everything though. I know they've got the limits, haven't they? I know with graphics cards they're good, but with other components they're not so good.
Yeah, I mean,
the structure of the component, isn't it?
There's no specific detail from what I've been looking at that says anything other than they're radiator-sized servers, and then what's the
I suppose if you design it with that in mind from the beginning, but it's never going to be the most efficient server. It's never going to be the most efficient design from a cooling perspective. Then, yeah.
Well, listen, the thing, I think it's probably going to be one of those things where you compromise a bit, but because you're not wasting as much energy, it's sort of like, it's the best of both worlds sort of thing, rather than being the best cooling or the best heating.
Yeah.
I'm just going to share out the images here that I've got, just to show you. So they look like fairly reasonably modern radiators. That's one of them. That's them, and that's presumably the thermostat.
Yeah.
In there, and they look a heck of a lot better than the battery packs that who was it? Tesla had on the walls there.
Yeah.
It's interesting, and again, I can't see on this image. It's a very small image, but I can't see any. It does look like a fairly self-enclosed system. Yeah. There's a little bit of conduit under here, so that must be the power. But other than that, I can't see. So each one, if you have multiples in the house, each one would be separate, I guess.
I think so, yeah. And I mean, I wasn't sure with looking at these as to whether these were renderings or actual photos.
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, now you mention it, I don't know that. There could be just CGI stuff. I don't know.
On their website. Yeah, it's the same picture on their website.
So yeah, I mean, definitely. In terms of, it's good somebody's thinking about the issue, and that we're not just wasting the heat. But I'm not entirely sure whether this is the way forward.
I mean, I was also wondering, like, into how many companies that are having their data manipulated for whatever they're doing would be happy about the sort of security of the fact that that's in someone's home. It's not in a secure data center. Are they limited in terms of what?
That is true. Yeah,
what processing they could do.
I guess it would all have to be encrypted on the server. So, and plus the fact that that there's a lot of laws about where your data is stored region-wise, depending on where you are. Well, obviously they'd have to think about that as well.
Yeah. But I mean, it'll be interesting to see whether it does become a thing, because obviously saving energy and this sort of thing, it's not wasting energy, is a good thing, and it is just this whole thing of you have computing power going, or energy going to computing power, and then you have to get rid of the heat to obviously for the components themselves, and you're spending money on cooling these things down. It would be much better if you could actually use that heat in an efficient way.
I suppose it's always going to be a short-term, well, I think short-term, but the long-term fix is obviously to make the components where if not eliminated, the heat waste is at least mitigated to the point where it's kind of a nominal amount rather than.
Yeah.
Presumably we could do more in that sense. If you really wanted to reduce the heat, presumably you could, but it's probably that it's just cost prohibitive to do that, isn't it?
Well, I mean, it's a in terms of that, it's a fundamental issue with electrons going through wires, isn't it? The faster you go, the more heat gets produced. So
yeah, but if
you need to sort of look at optical computers, that sort of thing, where there is no waste in the sort of physical transition of the data.
I've also just seen the upfront cost over a 3-year period, and it's £3,800.
So who's paying that though?
Well, I guess we would have to pay that. Whoever wants it in the house.
Oh, so you get the energy for free, but you have to.
Yeah.
Take you a while to recover the cost of that heat.
Well, I mean, it's one of these things that if it was going to happen, it would be subsidised in the same way as, like, solar panels you get on the roof and that sort of thing. Upfront costs for those are massively subsidised to encourage people to do greener things. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see if anyone does.
Well, no, the cost for those are only subsidised if you get them on the scheme. If you procure your own, you've got to pay for them. And they're not. You're talking $5,000 these days, so they're not massively expensive compared to what they used to be. Mm-hmm. It's like anything, though, supply and demand, isn't it?
Yeah.
I don't know. I guess as part of a more distributed energy network that we're going to have to go to in the future, it may become part of it. I can't see it's going to solve all our issues. Far from it, but it might be useful.
I'm sceptical about this one. I think it sounds a bit of a gimmick to me, because I think the way computing's going is that the whole thing is about cloud, isn't it? And there'll be less and less computing at your desk or at your home as time goes on, I suspect, not more. You might get more computing power, but you're going to get less. I just think the way the market's going, everything's going up into the cloud, isn't it? So
yeah, but the cloud
is the cloud didistributed in
exactly.
That sense,
this is the thing. If you had these in every home, that would be the cloud. You know what I mean?
I think any big company's not going to, any risk-averse company is going to be worried about having that server data out there, isn't it?
And if any of us got it, we'd be taking the front panel off to see what kit's inside and stuff.
You would, yeah. You're too right. And there'll always be a chance. Well, if it's anything, my gorgeous wife, who doesn't like things switched on all the time, will be going out of the house and going, we'll have this off. So I guess it. Did you say it was a bunch of university students or ex-university students?
There were the co-founders were 3 computer science graduates.
Yeah, I guess there is. I don't think there's. Is there any venture capital? Does it say anything about VC in that?
Yeah, they got funding from one of these what they're called crowdfunding ones called Simbid, I think it was. That's where they got that finance to get up and running. But I don't know if any sort of companies have invested in them or not. Let me have a quick look at their website.
Yes, Simbid. Yeah, there's a Twitter feed on their homepage.
Eneco, I think, is the company that they're working with. I think Eneco. Was that who they work for? No. Eneco, NPK Design. Climate KIC, that's who we got.
Yeah, EIT Knowledge and Innovation Community.
That's the one, yeah.
And Delft is obviously the place in.
They've got a big button on their website that just says, "I want free heating." So that's how they're selling it.
Free, but you've got to pay $3,500 up front.
Yeah.
But to be fair, well, actually, there's two forms here, because I clicked on the first one, which it said request more info, and on the request more info, it actually gives you the prices. But on the other form, where it says I want free heating, it doesn't give you the prices, and I don't understand whether you.
Yeah, so Eneco is the actual energy supplier.
Right.
So that's who
yeah. I've been wrong on many of these things before, and I'm not exactly a good futurist in any way, but I can't see this one working very well. I don't think it's got legs.
I'm out.
I'm out. Yeah. Excellent. Right. Next is on to Richard, and Richard is going to talk about the earliest murder ?
Yeah. So, how would you? First question is, how would you know a murder has been committed?
Someone would say, "There's been a murder, Lewis."
Or there's been a murder.
That's the one. Yeah.
But thinking with your scientific cap on, how would you establish that a murder's been?
Because someone would have died in a non-natural way.
Well, yeah. So you're looking for evidence of
evidence. That was it.
Yeah, evidence.
There
you go.
So, based on that, when do you reckon the first murder might have been committed?
So when was the first time that we actually recorded evidence, rather than just go, he's dead? God.
But but I mean that could be somebody.
Egyptian times.
It could be earlier than this date, but there's just no evidence. So this is the first evidence.
In Egyptian or ancient Greek times, when we first have sort of.
So what's that? 12, 14,000 years, sort of thing.
Something like that.
Yeah.
I'm going to go later. I'm going to go. Let me have a look at. Imagine my timeline in the head. I'm going to say. I'll say something considerably later. I'll say something like Roman.
Well, I've kind of thrown you off the scent a little bit. It's actually 430,000 years ago. And what this is...
Didn't expect that one.
No.
Yeah. So this is... Obviously, it wasn't evidence collected at the time. It's evidence collected in the modern time now, retrospectively. So this is a cave in Spain where they've actually found... I think this is the 29th body they've found now. But this body is going all the way back, so 430,000 years ago is before modern humans. Modern humans 200,000 years ago, so this is a long time back. I'll just share this picture with you.
So if it wasn't modern humans, I'd question whether it was really murder then.
Well, it was a human. It was a human. Modern human just means the anatomically similar species to humans. So within the phenotype of all people alive today, a modern human is that, basically, going back. So
can I just say, I think I've worked out how he died.
Yeah, so you can see the two.
Was he poisoned?
He was bludgeoned to death with over the left eye there. So that's two separate blows. So what they've said, the reason that they're saying this is clearly a murder is he was thrown down a shaft, and those injuries were sustained before he was thrown down the shaft.
So somebody hit him over the head and pushed him down. Basically,
and also there's been no healing on them, so they've been fatal to him, or they've occurred after death. They can't really have occurred after death because he was down a 13-meter shaft. So they've occurred before death, and also you can't really get two injuries that close together accidentally. So
it wasn't a really elaborate suicide.
I don't think you'd really fake a suicide back then. I don't know what you were getting faking a suicide back then.
It wasn't Professor Plum with the rope in the cave.
Yeah, in the rope in the cave, yeah.
So in terms of murder, is sacrifice considered murder?
Well, it would be if it happened now, wouldn't it? So
yeah, it would now, but in sort of historical times.
Yeah, I guess maybe they didn't have a concept for murder then, but by today's standard, he was killed by another. He was killed by another person, so it's murder mystery by today's standards. But I guess just a killing by those standards. Who knows? He might not have even been killed by one of his own subspecies of human. He could have potentially been killed by. In fact, I'll share.
Oh, we have an audio-visual representation of something coming up. I sense it.
Well, first of all, this is some of the analysis that they did. Just a little bit. So you can see it's it's unmistakably two different injuries, and also plotted there the points of impact and that they've come in from, two different blunt force traumas has caused the two injuries.
So did the person who, were the archaeologists who did this, or were the coroners who did this? Current coroners who went back to...
A team of scientists, basically. The cave's been a treasure trove because it's got so many very, very old humans in it.
Whereabouts is this cave?
In Spain.
In Spain.
Cima de los Husos cave.
Very good pronunciation. Yeah, exceptional.
But so I've drawn a red line on this picture here, and can you see, is that in screen there? So the red line is when this individual died, and if you see over to the right, so sapiens, so that's us, the modern humans up here. You can see at the time there was a few subspecies around. So like I said, modern humans was 200,000 years ago. This is 430,000 years ago. So you had Neanderthal, Heidelberg man, Denisovians. So you had lots of different species, and you can see
that's actually really interesting how that is subspecies. Did you say, or species on the left?
Yeah. So you have so modern humans are Homo sapiens sapien.
Yeah.
And then obviously Homo sapiens is the larger group, and then as you go back, Homo erectus formed the group that then split off into one that just stayed named erectus, which could be thought of as a subspecies. And then you can see it splits off there, and then much later, at sort of 300,000 years, the Denisovians and the Neanderthals split off. But the reason that they mix back in again is because we were coexisting in the same place. So the leading theories is that modern human has Neanderthal genes in it. So even though they split off and are recognised as a separate subspecies, they've remixed again because the populations inhabited the same places. So.
Do you know how on that picture you've got there, it only goes back to some things? Is that just because that's the only record we've got, or is that just where that graph cuts off? Like,
no, that's just going back 2 million years. Obviously, you could go back much further and see all of it. You could go back to first life and the evidence that we have and plot out where it all branches off.
Just think it's fascinating that Floresiensis is separate for so long and was around for so long.
Well, the reason for that's the one that's called Floor's Man, and also known as nicknamed the Hobbit, because they were only 3.5 feet tall, and they had quite small populations. So they existed because they were kind of in island habitats.
So quite isolated.
Yeah. So they were thought to be down to quite small numbers by the time they went extinct, and that was some theories as recently as 12,000 years ago. There was a volcanic eruption on Floors, and that basically was where they were at the time, and they were all wiped out by that. But yeah, they were just separate because, before ships, and there was, unless the places were joined, there was no way to get back once you were separate. So yeah, they were completely, they're like not even part of Erectus. They're a completely separate human.
So in terms of these murders, have they got a suspect?
No, but he was thought to be part of the line that became Neanderthal. So he's more of that lineage, because you can see. I've took it off now. The split is sort of around the time Neanderthals split off. but he's like a very early Neanderthal, but he would have just diverged in terms of evolutionary time. He would have just diverged. So, 430,000 years ago, they just split off, basically.
So I guess the question is that I guess they're looking for. They've got. Is this the only time they've ever found what they class as a murder? I would have thought that this type of bludgeoned to death type of death would be. What am I trying to say, John? I don't know.
Trying to say popular, but it's not the right word.
Well,
no,
there's lots of evidence in modern humans, 200,000 years onwards, which is a cause of debate. There's debate still going on now, which Steven Pinker's involved in, with the history of and decline of violence. And there's some that argue counter to Pinker, which is that violence is a product of modernity and after agriculture competing over resources, whereas in prehistoric humans you wouldn't have had that. Whereas Pinker's view is violence is an inherent part of the human condition, as it is with animals, and culture and morals and society emerges in modern humans. So this would seem to support his view, because going all the way back to 430,000 years ago, there was still murders happening. Yes, there is evidence, but this is the furthest back evidence so far.
That sounds like the right train of thought to me, I would say. what Pinker's argument is, that it is sort of violence is a natural animalistic thing. So, yeah, that's interesting that there's actually discussion as to whether violence is increasing or decreasing. I've never thought about that.
More specific in modern times. So, even when you take the two world wars into account, he's talking about the last few hundred years. Yeah. That after the Wild West and violent times like that, you've seen a serious decline in violence.
Yeah. Is there any evidence in the animal kingdom that? See, I mean, I always thought in the animal kingdom, the violence against something, another beast, so beast against a beast, was because it was food or protecting their family. But in humans, we seem to diverge of that. We still have that, but we also have, on the surface, people will be violent to somebody else because of other reasons, because of a mental reason, because of an artificial stimulant reason.
Yeah. Well, I guess you could argue that it's arbitrary where you start drawing those distinctions, though, isn't it? I mean, if you kill someone over money, obviously non-human animals don't have a concept of money, but yet it's still competing for resources. Maybe you could argue, well, we think we're very nuanced in all this, and this stuff emerges because of money or because of whatever, but really, at a base level, it's just competing over resources, isn't it? And if the resource changes from food to money, then you murder someone for that resource instead, basically.
In other words, are you looking at me, or have you spilt my pint? Is just it's just a resource.
Well, yeah. I mean, there's loads of evidence for that. The thing that springs to mind when you mentioned spilling pints and stuff is that I was reading something recently about if two men are squaring up to each other, a younger person or a woman or someone of less physical stature can easily separate them, because mentally what they want is someone to step in, but the sort of bravado won't let them. A man will, I'm making a generalization, but in that situation when tempers are flared, two alpha males won't back down from a conflict, but they will be easily split because they don't really want to, they don't really want to risk injury at a unconscious level. They're not aware that they're doing that, but it's easy to split them because they don't really want that, but there's just no opportunity to back down. You see that in the animal kingdom as well, don't you? That you'll see two bulls fighting, two males of a species fighting, and then something will interrupt them. It's like, oh, all right, well, we'll just look at that now. But yeah, when you're saying about mental illness and stuff like that, I don't know if you've seen Blackfish, the documentary about orcas in captivity, and I touched on that a little bit in the last episode. But they kill for reasons that they don't kill in the wild in captivity. So, despite being killer whales, there's not been a single recorded incident of an orca killing a person in the wild. But they do it routinely in captivity, because the theory is that they become mentally ill. They develop mental health problems due to being in captivity. So yeah, probably you do see it. Probably is there in the animal kingdom. We just don't understand animals as well as we understand ourselves, I guess. But certainly this is a case of, he's been purposely killed and purposely thrown down a shaft, whether it's ritualistic or not. It's, I'm sure it wasn't his will for that to happen, but,
So, did you mention they found 29 other?
Yeah, I think there's 28 human skeletons have already come out of there.
And how many have been down shafts?
Down this shaft.
All right.
So they're saying what's going. There's an argument to be made about that. I don't know what length I said it was before. It's actually 13 meters. I don't know what I said, but so it's totally inaccessible, and the geology will have been the same back then. So there's no other way. So the bodies are being thrown down there and they're all different ages as well. So this cave has been used for that purpose over a long period of time. So it's not only is it first evidence of a murder, but it's some of the earliest evidence of bodies being collected together, and not really a burial as we talk of it now, but certainly bodies being put somewhere in particular rather than just left.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, 430,000 years is a long time back as well.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Excellent. A good topic. A very good topic. Right. Okay. Well, I'm going to go on to the last topic, which is mine this week. However, before we're going to do that, normally Richard comes up with what do you think this is, and one of his crazy creatures. But this week I'm going to do what do you think this is, and if I'll just get it up on the screen and ask the question to everybody. What do you think this is? Any idea?
Speak again, because it's gone.
Sorry. Any idea what this is? And it's.
Well, it's in the sea, is it?
Ah, well, it's not actually. I'll tell you what it is.
I'm going to cheat and look at the URL and assume that it's something in the trees.
It's fungi.
Fungi. Ah.
Yeah,
it does look like something underwater there, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think this is moss down here actually, which is kind of threw you a little bit. But it's an actual species of fungi, and there is actually a website that I just found this week, and it's just a guy who has pictures of weird and wonderful fungi. Hang on.
So is that like a colony of fungi rather than just one individual? Is it?
Yeah. Well, I guess it's. I don't know. Well, how do you class a colony? If you have a colony of mushrooms, does it come from one spore or something?
Yeah, is it one organ? Well, I get once they're living independently of each other. Is that just a collection together, or is it?
No. Well, I think it's all comes from one spore.
Right. Okay.
So, and I unfortunately I have no idea about how big that is. I've got nothing against it, so I can't give you.
Fungi are kind of a class in themselves, aren't they? They're a separate kingdom altogether from plants and animals. So they're
yeah. I'll put the link on the show notes, because there's just a guy who goes around and photographs weird fungi, and there's some really weird stuff.
Yeah, there is.
But I thought that was quite an interesting one. Anyway, right on to what.
Like when you're a kid and you had like the stuff the Play-Doh comes out of, and your screen comes out. Looked like that.
Oh yes, I never had that, unfortunately. I was desperately dishevelled and anyway, and an only child and. Anyway, right, on to the last story. Right, the last story is about memory and amnesia, and it's something that I'm particularly interested in, because I'm always worried about my memory. My memory is sieve-like in many aspects, and so any studies and any stories on amnesia and any degenerative memory loss, then I'm really interested in it. So this is this happens to.
You can't remember it later. You've read the same stories.
No, well, I always say the only way that I can explain what I have to other people is that if you had a computer, you'd have memory and you'd have a pointer to where that is in memory. Well, I know that it's in the memory, but the pointer never seems to get updated, or gets updated very infrequently. Yeah. So I can never go straight to that thing, so I end up having to go straight to the memory and going through recalling every little item.
You have to do a search. There's no index.
Yeah, I have to do a search because there's no index. Essentially, that's the only way I can explain it.
Alzheimer's is like that, isn't it? I mean, the data's not lost. It's just the pathway is blocked.
You see, this is the thing. This is exactly what this story is. There's a lot of medical professionals who suggest that an Alzheimer's like degenerative disease, that the actual period in time that people pass and they can't remember is actually not being recorded. So the reason why that people who have Alzheimer's can recall something from their childhood, can recall something from 30, 40 years with exceptional clarity, is because that is there. And what happened last week is not actually there. It's not being recorded.
Right.
But this particular study here suggests otherwise. And I'll give you, I'll fill you in as we go through. It's another mice study, Richard. This one, so you'll like that. So it's done by the Center for Neural Circuit Genetics in Japan, and this is based around, the whole project is based around the premise that even if you have a degenerative memory condition, the memories may still be there, just locked away. And as I said, the common belief amongst many medical professionals is that they're not there, they don't get recorded, and whilst you've got this disease. So what this is essentially, there's two sets of mice. The first, when they were doing the initial experiment, they had a set of mice, and they put them in this enclosure, this chamber, and they gave them a shock. I don't know how. That's not. It might be in the full report, which is incidentally published in Science magazine, Science report. But they have an enclosure. They introduce the mice. They give them a shock. The mice naturally don't like the shock, and this initiates a sense of fear into the mice. So they are looking for, at this stage, they're looking for neurons that get triggered when mice have this fear. So they introduced another set of mice, did the same thing, but also what did they do? They made memory cells in the second batch of mice sensitive to a light before studying them with the same shocks treatment. So they were linking this light to the memory thing. Now, what they did then was, in this second batch of mice, they injected them with a drug used to make memories disappear, which is called, I think it's called anisomycin. It's a mycin drug.
You sure it's not alcohol?
Yeah, well, possibly. But I don't think it is. I think it's genuinely a drug. But so they give them this drug to erase this memory. So they'll do the enclosure. They give them a shock. They erase their memory, but because they've actually made these memory cells sensitive to this blue light, when they put them back into the enclosure after they're given the shock, the mice have no fear of this environment, even though before they were showing fear. And then when they stimulate the neurons again, the ones that they were monitoring that showed fear with this blue light, the fear was shown to return. So what they're postulating here is then they obviously had this locked away when they were emulating this degenerative disease by the introduction of this drug. They were just breaking the link, so the memories were still there, but they had no way of accessing them. And then they were reintroducing them again, giving them this the sensitivity, blue light sensitivity treatment, and the link was returned. So this is what they're thinking is a way of that they might actually be there all along, and they just might the neurons might not be linking up and bringing them back, retrieving them. So interesting.
I always thought, all right, I'm surprised I haven't read about it in a long time, but I always thought what you're describing there was the leading theory
it's not actually, because I was about 6 months ago. I listened to a program on Radio 4 about this, and it did seem to be that the leading postulation was that it was the other way around.
Right.
But I guess is that until they've had something like this, nobody really knew, and it was just two camps.
Yeah.
So
the reason that these drugs seem to fail is because what often happens is that they make those kind of assumptions that you're talking about, and then they go to treat them, and it's much more nuanced and complex than the first thought, and then go, oh, well, okay, well, maybe it's just this, and then they get to that stage, and it's even more complex, so maybe that's why they keep changing.
Yeah, so what they're saying is that the two parts of the hippocampus regions of the brain for the short-term and the long-term memory, and that they might be able to make the link back up that was that they thought to be broken. That's the whole crux of the research project.
So I was going to say there, yeah, in terms of short-term, long-term memory, what my understanding has always been, correctly or not, I don't know, that you sort of you have the short-term and long-term memory, and when you're sleeping overnight, when you're not conscious and doing stuff, your brain is sort of filtering out the non-important things and important things, putting them in short-term memory, and doing some sort of housekeeping. And I assume that degenerative sort of memory issues would be that process didn't happen, so things didn't get moved to the sort of long-term memory.
Yeah,
they got thrown away.
Which is it? Yeah.
I was actually of that opinion. That was what was going on.
So actually, you're saying you're doing a third thing. So they're the people who think that it's not actually getting recorded at all. So it's not actually getting recorded in short-term memory. There's what Richard thought, which was it is getting recorded, it is put in long-term memory, but the link's gone.
Yeah.
And you're saying that it is actually going into short-term memory, but because it's not getting transferred to long-term memory, it goes. Yeah. So, but that's certainly what they're thinking.
In terms of Alzheimer's, I assume they've done tests to test short-term memory. Show someone 5 cards and then say, right, what were the 5 cards? Is Alzheimer's, does it affect short-term memory?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. That is one of the main problems, because that's why they have to.
That's what goes first. They basically describe it as that they go back, and that's why they end up just talking about their childhood, because that's the last. So that early, it doesn't quite work that way, but the earliest memories seem to be the ones that persist most. Yeah. And that's why they get confused and think their husband is their father, and they basically go back like that.
Yeah.
Because
I knew that it stopped the. I think the thing where we're on different tracks is, I think after the onset of the disease, I understood that they couldn't, because obviously if none of that's working, you can't take stuff in. But I just meant the data that was stored from before the onset of the disease is still there, and the thing that gets eroded is their ability to access those memories, because the brain structure physically is not destroyed, is it? It's just the neural.
Oh no. I think there's no argument about the fact that they do have memories before the disease, and they are very, very firmly planted, and they can with some extreme clarity, even in somebody who's has progressed a long way down the route of this disease, they can with extreme clarity retrieve individual items from their past and explain everything to the if it's a particular person, what they were wearing, what colour they're wearing, what material they're wearing. They can do all that. But something in the recent past, it just hasn't happened to them.
Yeah.
So, and what they were saying in this Radio 4 documentary that what happens is people who are looking after anybody who's got a degenerative memory condition is that they get frustrated and they start shouting at them and say, "Why can't you remember?" And naturally, the person who's got the condition gets very upset because they're trying to remember, but it's not there to them. So they're saying, "Well, you're making huge chunks of my life up," from their point of view, because it hasn't happened to them.
Yeah.
So they're basically saying that you must, if you're in this situation, you must just agree with them, go with them.
Yeah.
And if they think they're going somewhere this particular day, you shouldn't say, "No, you're not. You're doing this." You should just say, "Yes, of course you are."
Well, I think
because further down the road they'll change that. They'll do something. They'll think of something else.
Well, plus if you're going to debate them, you're going to have that debate 7 times in an hour. Because
exactly. And I think that's what that sort of infuriates the carer, and then hence the carer gets uptight, and then the patient gets uptight, and nobody wins on that one.
I know with me Nana, even when she was quite far progressed, she still knew she didn't like Margaret Thatcher. That's the day that she stopped remembering that. I knew that she remembered nothing basically, because she's still like the Go Compare advert and Margaret Thatcher were the two like things that no matter what she remembered those, because she hated them both. It's funny how like strong feelings of despising someone outlives even like the most cherished memories, but obviously the more powerful emotion, I guess.
I guess so, and I wonder if that is a completely separate. I wonder if the stronger emotions, or in particular emotions of hate, are in a different part of the memory again.
Possibly.
I mean, I know you're really interested in neuroscience and stuff, and well, who isn't? It's because it's fascinating. But I thought I'd share with you this, because this, although again the caveat is it's a study in mice, but
and also it remains to be seen how much a drug-induced test, regardless of the organism that you do, even if you did do it in humans, which obviously you would never get permission to do, but even if you did, how well that emulates disease, because disease is much more complicated than a drug being administered, isn't it?
Well, actually, I think one of the aims, they did say that one of them was degenerative memory diseases, but they were also, it was more to do with memory issues from accidents. I think that was one of their main ones when they initially started the project. So there were people who had brain injuries from accidents. I think that was what they were.
That's always a fascinating area, and it's a bit morbid, but it's always it brings a lot of insight to the field as well when people have brain injuries and somehow survive them when they shouldn't, or previous evidence suggested that they shouldn't, but clearly the brain is more malleable. We realise every time we look at it, it's more malleable than we previously thought. That was famously that railroad worker who had the pipe, and it completely went all the way through. It shot through it at 100 miles an hour, went completely through, and just took a hole that size through. Completely changed his personality, and he didn't bother with his previous life and had lost all his empathy and things like that. But he managed for a while after that. So this shows you.
Indeed. Well, I think that's it for this evening. But before we go, I just want there was a piece of news that I thought we've touched on before, and I said I was going to come back to it once it had happened, and I'll give you an update. And that is the Carl Sagan light sail. It was launched, and I think I did mention that they did have a computer software issue, and unfortunately they launched it, and the idea was that they'd fixed the software but they couldn't put it on the server because it was all packed away. So what they were going to do is, when it first went up there, the first time it was going to pass the base station, they were going to upload the fix to the software. The fix at the software issue was that it was logging all this stuff it would have to pack it up and then send it back down to the base station, but there wasn't enough memory available for it to do all that. So they'd have to actually kill some of the logs. So you'd only get... I know, it sounds... when I read it, it was like, this is basic, this is 101 programming, it is. But anyway, what happened was they did launch, it did unpack, they got enough telemetry back to know that it was out there in orbit, that the sails had unpacked. But unfortunately, by the time that it came around for the first pass around where the base station was, it had died. So the buffer had filled up, and it essentially just keeled over.
Oh, that's a shame.
So it's dead.
What have they learned then?
They've learned about the launch procedures. They've learned a lot of information about the launch procedures and the unpacking of they know all the mechanical stuff that they tried and tested on Earth worked fine. It's just a load of coders couldn't get it right. Hey, Ross?
I should give a quick update on the solar roadways thing. Well, it wasn't actually the solar roadways one. You remember the one that they did in the Netherlands?
Yeah, this was like the first or second episode, wasn't it?
Yeah.
The solar freaking roadways.
Solar freaking roadways, yeah. Absolutely. So that was basically, long story short, regarded as a complete success. It met and exceeded all the goals in terms of tests for stopping distance. The amount of power was meant to for that short distance that they built was meant to be enough to power a house, 3,000 kilowatts or something like that. But it managed all of that. So whether that means it's going to be a success in the sense of we're going to see it soon, I don't know. But you imagine with the... I'm imagining some of the success that Tesla's going to have is going to impact on that, because you can see how those products align, can't you? That a lot of that goes hand in hand. So hopefully we're going to see some more of that soon.
And again, this was in the Netherlands as well, wasn't it? This is a very progressive country for research into things like this.
Definitely, yeah.
Yeah. Excellent. Well, that's another fine episode of The Wonder of Stuff, all wrapped up and put away, filed in its little cabinet for another week. As always, we are here on Twitter any time of the day or night. We've had our Twitter handles online on the screen all evening. We've got on, of course, our email address, wonderofstuff@gmail.com. Any feedback, good or bad, please send it in here. We've all got access to the mailbox, and we will answer you either directly by email or on the next episode. And we've also got the blog, wonderofstuff.blogspot.com, where we've got the show notes, a reading list, which actually you haven't done, Ross. Oh, you have done it. You have done your reading list, sorry.
I haven't updated it at all since doing it.
You haven't updated the reading list, but you haven't updated your profile as well. There's it tells us a bit about us three on there, and various other things. That'll all go on there. So anyway, until next time, we hope you've enjoyed the show, as I said, and well, nothing more to say. Goodbye, everybody. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Bye.